Well, crap. We got copyright problems again. Do I risk doing another film involving Studio Canal right away? Or do I cover something else that won't give me as much of an issue?
People you see every day might want to touch you, and sometimes that's dangerous.
Screw it. Let's take a trip to Pooh Corner.
Here comes Winnie the Pooh.
Winnie the Pooh, tubby little cubby all stuffed with fluff. He's Winnie the Pooh.
Welcome to Pooh Corner. I remember seeing this. It must have been in reruns though, since this show came out in 1983, at around the same time as Winnie the Pooh and A Day for Eeyore. And it was the first television program, not counting the Shirley Temple storybook episode anyway, to star Winnie the Pooh. Before the more popular and most notable iteration, The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, which came out in 1987, the year after this series ended. This show, aside from the heavy use in puppets and costumes, took their own liberties for the sake of capturing the charm of the original books, which resulted in some reasonable content for children, even if some of the costumes looked a bit off-putting.
And ate some more. Boy, it's a good thing spaghetti is something Tigger like best.
You could at least say they tried, despite including some song sequences in them, but yeah. I could keep going on and even talk about the interesting history involving the creator and his son, Christopher Robin Milne, but I should probably save that for in case I ever review the upcoming live-action movie. Besides, I know some of you wanted me to look at the Stranger Danger PSA this show did, ever since doing the corny video. I mean, I guess I could. People know more about Winnie the Pooh than they do Corny the Alien. Plus, this was one of a few educational specials this show did, so it should be interesting to see what happens given the show's own liberties, starting with the opening sequence, in which Pooh sings about strangers.
Too smart for strangers, that's me, Winnie the Pooh.
Normally I'd say you're too dumb for strangers, but for some reason the show made you a bit smarter than normal. And he runs a band. Seriously.
There's a black and orange tiger just bouncing through the woods.
Also of note is that Pooh's regular voice actor at the time, Hal Smith, is one of 3 actors to return from the animated Pooh shorts, the others being Will Ryan, playing Rabbit and Tigger, and of course, Laurie Main as the narrator, though he's not in this one because it's a PSA essentially, and the characters do all the talking.
My name is Winnie the Pooh, as you probably already know. Since we've been friends so long, you see, I know you and you know me. But a stranger is, oh bother, not like your mom or father.
And that's going to be contradicted later. I can't wait to get to that part. Ooh, that part. Pooh seems to be having trouble thinking of a way to explain to us what a stranger is, which is immediately solved after running into Piglet.
A stranger is something a piglet is not.
Ha! I mean, I get it. He knows him, but when you phrase it like that, it just makes it sound like it can be abused. At least Piglet corrects him, but the damage is already done. And really, what incentive would a bunch of forest animals have in talking about strangers? They live in the 100-acre wood, where the only people who can find it are Christopher Robin and Sora. It isn't until later series that we get other animals, but this is still based on the books and what characters were around at the time, so there's nothing to compare a real stranger with. This is the problem a show like this has versus what Corny did. It has to address the issue of stranger danger for educational purposes, but does so in a way that seems out of character and without any real analogies they could use as a stand-in. If this were made after The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, it probably could have worked to have I don't know. Maybe a heffalump or woozle be the stranger? Otherwise, you get awkward dialogue like this.
I mean, we're all friends, so you're not a stranger. And a mommy or daddy or brother or sister wouldn't be a stranger either.
A stranger may be someone you've seen in your neighborhood or places you go, but you don't really know that person.
At the very least, they try to establish ways for even small children to handle themselves. They're outdated by today's standards, and even then might not always work back then. But hey, let's listen to them.
Number 1, say no to strangers. Number 2, run away. Number 3, tell your parents or a grown-up you trust.
They relay it through song, of course, which includes the standard practice of them offering you gifts or rides. But just so it's not only Pooh or Piglet talking about stranger danger, we have everybody talking about it, starting with Tigger.
Hi, little Pallaroo.
Hi, Big Pallarino.
My buddy and I go all kinds of places together, 'cause it's more fun to go places with a friend, and it's good and safe, too.
You know, there's something that can be said about a grown man hanging around a preschooler as a friend, but we are dealing with anthropomorphic plush animals, so it's definitely not the same. So this is the segment about where strangers could normally be, like places with no other people around.
Look, there are alleys, construction sites. You know, those places where they're building a building or something.
What part of the 100-acre wood are you looking at?
Looky, I've got some friends out there who can show us. Watch carefully now.
You know, they would have to meet the man in the tiger suit as a stranger before becoming a friend. What kind of message is that sending? Basically, this girl is out too late and makes the brilliant decision to take a shortcut.
What should she do now that she's met a stranger?
I think she should run away fast and tell an adult.
Good thinking, Roo. Let's go back and see what Karen does.
Hey, kid, come here.
No!
Okay, that was reasonable.
Now, what would you do next if you were Karen?
I'd tell my mama.
You already said you would tell an adult after running away. You could have waited for them to cut back to you after showing the girl get home. And yeah, typical talk about how the father is a little upset she didn't listen, but happy that she was able to follow safety practices against strangers. This of course still applies to places that are normally safe for you, like the sidewalk.
Well, aren't you pretty little girls? What are your names?
Oh, and instead of word prompts, we just have that sound cue before it pauses. That's also common in these PSAs. They also bring up a good point to not be polite in these cases, since they may try to grab you, and if they do,
then scream and kick and bite, fight with all your might, and try to get away.
Think of it like when I met you and wanted to eat you for breakfast. Oh, good old predator and prey days. Your mother still feeds me to keep me from eating you both. Time for another song.
Tell someone like mom or dad, I think you'll find they won't get mad. Make them believe you, keep telling them till they do.
But Tigger, what if they don't believe me? What if they think it's my fault? What if they won't love me anymore?
Then clearly they're either abusive or they're complicit in certain activities. This is followed by kids talking to the stranger with a camera about what they would do when encountering a stranger. Oh, the 80s and its fashion. What a time. Anyway, time for Eeyore to say his piece.
Tell me, what do you do if you meet a stranger?
I can't tell you that, 'cause no one ever notices me.
Ironic, given how many people wear merchandise of you. Suddenly, Rabbit shows up as a magician, and is also rather tolerant of Tigger's existence for once, as they talk about the tricks strangers use to get you to do something for them.
Watch our friend Timmy and see if you can find the trick.
Hey kid, come here a second. I seem to have lost my dog somewhere around here, and I was wondering if you might help me try to find him.
Well, Eeyore, did you hear anything tricky?
Yep. Having a stranger ask you to find his dog sounds tricky to me.
That's right, Eeyore. You're pretty smart.
By this point, you can tell the big difference between this and the corny video is that it uses multiple examples with multiple kids instead of just one kid to learn everything, while also giving you a possible solution for these confrontations instead of showing the consequence of failing to act right. On one hand, this would make the corny video have more impact because they show you the scary side of being abducted by strangers and gets you to think more. But on the other hand, this one is a little more informative, and you might be inclined to listen to characters you know and love. That's how these PSAs can get you, using characters you recognize as a means to tell you stuff, as opposed to something freshly created that you might not become attached to.
No!
Where are they going?
They're telling a police officer. Now that's smart.
Yeah, but nowadays the police aren't as trustworthy given how they let the bad cops act like the strangers they claim to stop. Oh, and we do get that one, "I'm a friend of your parent" ploy.
I'm a friend of your mother's. She's sick and asked me to come pick you up.
My mother's dead! Oh, this is awkward. Anyway, after a few more awkward cuts to the kids talking to the cameraman, we get Owl talking to us about strangers by relating it to his family experiences.
This is my brother Owl Roy. I remember when he was just a wee owlet. He was home alone, and a stranger called and asked if Mother was home. Owl Roy remembered never to tell a stranger that he was home alone.
Was the stranger a hawk and were they asking him out for dinner? Unlike the corny one, this one addresses what would happen if you told a stranger your name and if you were home alone, all on the phone. The answer? Just call the neighbor to come by. That will remedy things. Moving right along, we get things like call your parents on the phone, don't ever let strangers in no matter what, and say you were busy and the like. Though this one concerns me.
Now that man is a stranger, and he wants to talk to Sarah's mother, but Sarah's mother isn't home.
Was it just normal in the 80s for parents to leave their children home alone? Especially in a time where stranger danger was a thing? At this point, it's really just cut and dry, so let's skip ahead to the one thing about this special that I think most people remember the most. Pooh and Piglet talking about molestation.
Well, there are certain private places on your body that nobody is supposed to touch except you. Your bathing suit covers your private parts. Sometimes your parents might touch them if they're dressing you or bathing you, or the doctor has to touch them when he's examining you.
This coming from plush animals wearing no pants.
Oh, but is there touching that's not okay, Pooh?
Oh, yes, Piglet. And that's the kind of touching that gives you a funny feeling inside. It feels wrong because other people shouldn't touch your private parts.
Look, this is clearly an important subject to talk about and all, but using Winnie the Pooh to do it? It just seems so awkward. I mean, they've been breaking character since the beginning, but this is too much.
If anybody tries to touch you anywhere in a not okay way, a way that feels wrong, tell them no.
No matter who they are, Pooh?
Absolutely, Piglet. It's not always a stranger, even if it's somebody you know or somebody you've seen at home, at school, or in your neighborhood. You have to say no.
And another thing, saying no isn't going to magically make them stop. Not all the time anyway. That would depend on what the hell is happening. And what if your parents are doing the touching? What then? Oh sure, they bring up that it might be someone you know, but if it was your parents, they aren't going to tell you. Instead, it's time for a song on what to do about people touching you.
Say no. Stop that. It's not okay with me. No, don't do that. I have the right, you see. My body is my very own. That's how it's got to be. I've learned this is the time to say it's not okay with me. No, stop that, it's really not okay. No, don't do that, take your hands away. I know I'm not at all to blame, I've done nothing bad, and now I'm going right away to tell my mom and dad.
Again, they might be complicit in this.
I know I'm not at all to blame, I've done nothing bad, and now I'm going right away to tell my mom and dad.
You have no parents! And in the montage, there's at least 2 kids with who I assume are their parents. Jeez, Sonic Says did this better than you.
Don't touch me.
Bravo, bravo. That's the way to be too smart for strangers.
I think they got off easy. I mean, the worst that could have happened was a beating, a scolding, rape, murder. And of course, we get an outdated lesson on telling people about what happened.
What would you do if someone says he'll hurt you if you tell?
It's just a trick. I'd still tell my mom and dad.
Good. And if someone says they'd hurt your parents if you told?
I wouldn't believe them. I'd tell.
Boy, you kids know how to help yourselves. Because those threats bad people make are not true. They're just tricks to get you not to tell. Always tell if someone does something you think is wrong, even if they say it's a secret. Keep telling and telling. Someone will believe you. It's not your fault. Tell. Just say, Mom, Dad, that person touched me and it felt wrong.
If only people were this reliable. Well, that's Too Smart for Strangers for ya. Yeah, this was really awkward. Never mind how outdated some of this stuff is, or that it doesn't address parental problems on that last subject, but it certainly felt like Winnie the Pooh as a vehicle for talking about stranger danger was not the best idea you can come up with. It just feels so wrong for them to break the fourth wall in this manner just to tell kids about stranger danger when they themselves never have any. It's kind of weird for me to say that with Corny. It was a bit closer to being relatable since the character was in a realistic environment, while Pooh and friends are in their forest watching through Buster Baxter's camera the events of the real world. But I guess that's just the nature of these PSAs. No matter how well intended they may seem, they end up being either outdated or being unable to be taken seriously to follow. I suppose this would make for good riffing material for anyone into that, given how they phrase things and whatnot. Take it as you will, but unless I can find someone who can locate other corny films, then I probably won't be touching another PSA for a while. Not unless it's that one All-Star cartoon. But anyway, I'm the Media Hunter. Media's my prey, and reviewing them my way.
Corner, but for today, we'll just have to say, toodaloo, so long and goodbye.